This is Sean Thomas Radcliff. Welcome to another episode of Preservation Oaks. In this series, we introduce you to professionals from museums, cultural, genealogical, and historical societies across the United States. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. Good day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We've got an exciting program lined up for you. In this episode, we're thrilled to welcome Ms. Michelle Zeeman from the Helena Township Historical Society in Alden, Michigan. Established in 1985, the Society is dedicated to preserving the area's rich history through documents, photos, and artifacts. They also host programs and events to promote local history. The Society's Depot Museum is a treasure trove of historical artifacts, and their research library is packed with resources about local, county, and state history. They also have a website full of info on upcoming events and township history. By the end of this episode, you'll be inspired to join their mission to preserve Helena Township's unique heritage. Supporting and volunteering at the Society is a worthy cause. I'm your host, Sean Thomas Radcliff, coming to you from Salt Lake City, and this is Preservation Oaks, the talk program on Microstream Radio spotlighting museums, cultural and heritage institutions, and historical societies across the United States. You can find us on preservationoaks.podbean.com, Rumble, Getter, Minds, TikTok, Facebook, Odyssey, and YouTube. Please like, comment, follow, or subscribe. It means a lot to us. If you're interested in being a guest or have any questions, email us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Want to say thanks to all our supporters. By spreading the word, you're helping us honor the heroes of Preservation Oaks who protect our history. You're helping shine a spotlight on their incredible work, so thank you. Unlike many podcasts, we don't ask for donations. Our passion is highlighting the amazing organizations we call our Preservation Oaks. By sharing our program, you're supporting these extraordinary efforts. Let's keep the momentum rolling. Support your local historical organizations or museums, and together we'll ensure our heritage is preserved for future generations. Thank you for being a part of our journey. All right, now let me tell you about our next episode of Preservation Oaks. We'll be chatting with Ms. Brenda Rigdon from the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. Founded in 1981, this organization is Michigan's largest membership group dedicated to preserving the state's rich cultural and architectural heritage. They've earned numerous awards for their efforts in strengthening state legislation, establishing protective ordinances, serving as an information hub, developing training programs, and advocating for preservation. This is going to be a fantastic episode for anyone in Michigan looking to make a difference in preserving your history. I can't wait. Now here's a short biography of our guest today. Michelle Zeeman's path to preserving local history wasn't a direct one, but her love for history has always been clear. Although her professional career was in hospital administration as a registered nurse for over 30 years, her passion for history never faded. After retiring in 2008, Michelle felt inspired to volunteer at the Alden Depot Museum, a project close to her heart as it was the lifelong work of her next-door neighbor and the museum's founder, Dorothy Walter. Since 2008, Michelle has been a dedicated volunteer and for the past 3 years has served as the secretary on the Historical Society's executive board. Having spent her childhood summers in Alden, where her parents owned a lake cottage since 1966, Michelle has a deep connection to the community. After making Alden her home in 1992, she's enjoyed every moment of giving back to the place she holds dear. All right. Welcome to the program, Michelle.
Well, Sean, it is a pleasure to be here today.
You're very welcome. I'm so happy you're with us. It's going to be a joy to learn about the Helena Township Historical Society, the depot, the Alden Depot, and everything that's going on that you're doing in the community. What a beautiful area of our country you live in, I tell you. From looking at Alden on my favorite map app, I see water everywhere. All around Alden, there's Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and then Alden sits right on Torch Lake. Now, you're from Helena Township Historical Society. What do you love most about living in Helena Township?
Boy, I couldn't nail it down with one thing. I love everything. We've been here retired for many years and had a house here since 92. So we were here in the summer, and since 2011, we've been here full time, at least full time with a few months away in the winter. But what we love, of course, is the lake, and the lake. And that's what everyone has been coming here for the past century and a quarter, at least. It is a resort town through and through, and that's why we're all here. And besides, even though it's very rural, we're 25 miles away from Traverse City, where we can find absolutely everything we need, from medical care to vibrant downtown and art scenes. So lots and lots to do here.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I just loved going through the town on my map app. I saw a sign about a village center next to the post office and asking for donation. What's that all about?
The Village Center is a brainchild of the Alden Volunteers, and Alden Volunteers were created before 2000, and there are around 200 people that have membership in the group, and they are strictly there to make the town better. There is a little saying at their logo, where neighbors care, and is at the entrance of the town, surrounded by flowers. And what they're doing with the Village Center is they did a fundraiser, as they do, and created enough income to put together a kind of a community center where we could have music and events right there in town on property that was donated by an old family from the town. So they will be able to sponsor any kind of community activity, and also have a place to store their things that they need to take care of the town.
Boy, that's going to be great when that's done. Wow.
It will be, yes.
That street really needs that. It's going to be great, except for parking, maybe.
Yes, parking is always an issue. And I'll tell you, this summer has been crazy with the number of people coming into town. And so all of the parking spots are pretty much filled on Main Street, even during the week, Mondays and Tuesdays, which usually are not busy days. It's been busy downtown. There are a lot of old buildings that have been in the process of being renovated. So yes, that was in a spot where a building had collapsed and it was a vacant lot. So it's much improved.
Maybe it's time to think about a parking garage or leveling some of those old buildings to create a parking space for people.
Oh, do we want to make it that accessible?
Well, yeah, that's true. I remember being in Carmel, California, and Carmel is just chock full of tourists, and you can barely get around in the summertime.
Yes. Well, thankfully, we're much smaller than that, and we'll never be able to be that big. Although the lake has seen a tremendous increase in activity in the last few years. It was pretty quiet during the week on the lake, but now I say that, but of course, it's still, compared to smaller lakes downstate, it's absolutely nothing. It's still, I can look out the window right now and I don't see a single boat, and I'm looking around 5 miles of water.
Wow.
So I guess I shouldn't complain about visitors.
Great. That's great. So Alden is right on Torch Lake, and the depot is right next to Torch Lake, if I understood it correctly from looking. Does the Depot Museum ever flood from Torch Lake?
Oh, no, this is not that kind of waterway. Torch Lake is so large, and I'll get into that a little bit, but the water stays within a foot, really, between spring and fall, never increases more than that. And the depot, which actually is, I can look out my window and see, I'm just 2 doors down from it. It sits up from the lake about maybe 10 feet on an embankment. And there is actually a village park. The township owns the property and the building. And so it is a park with picnic tables, and it's actually the site of many events during the summer. But no flooding, thankfully.
Oh, that is good. That is good. I've interviewed some historical societies that have annual flooding because, evidently ice flows come in the river and it floods, and they just have a terrible time.
Yes, well, we're big enough that we've seen ice move down the lake and kind of bunch up and actually have water come up through the ice like a little volcano. And actually, the last 2 years, the lake hasn't frozen at all,
Wow.
which it generally doesn't freeze until January or February. And then we have ice fishermen, but they have been vexed by the weather the last couple of years, but there's been no ice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I hope you have a better winter. I think it's a good thing to have ice, right?
Well, it is because, the area has grown based on, and I'm thinking about the farmers and everything. I mean, we do need a certain climate to support what agricultural crops we have. And this year the cherries were impacted because it wasn't cold enough, which I hate cold. So I hate to say that it wasn't cold enough, but it really wasn't to take care of some of the, I guess, the insects that they depend on being killed off in the winter. So we do need it to be more stable. And of course it ebbs and flows. Some winters are warm, some are very cold. I think 3 or 4 years ago, we went for a week with in the teens to 25 below zero. It was just horrific.
Whoa.
And people's septic fields froze. It was crazy. So we do get a variety, but the last 2 years have been a little warmer than I think anyone wants.
I was just looking at the Farmer's Almanac forecast for 2024-2025 winter, and they are saying that because of the La Nina, the jet stream is going to be right there coming down Michigan's way, and your winter is going to be colder than normal.
Well, that'll be good news for an awful lot of people. And we didn't have much snow last year, which was kind of crazy as well. And so for people that are here all winter and like to ski and snowshoe and cross-country ski, it was not a good thing. So we need the jet stream to come down with the Canadian Express. I can't think of what it's called. Yeah, we definitely need the cold air, the jet stream to be coming down our way. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be great. Now, I saw a building on the map app on Coy Street, and it's a building with the date 1884 on it. And on the front window was a slogan that said, "Keep Torch."
You probably, as you were looking at it, because it's in shades of blue, might not have picked up the last word. That is a building from 1884 when the first buildings began going up. But that was originally, I believe, the community or the town office or community center. But that building houses currently one of our conservation groups. Torch Conservation Center is what it's called. And their slogan is "Keep Torch Blue."
Okay.
And as you probably noticed, this lake has beautiful color in it. It's thanks to very hard water and the calcium in the water. It's very clear, very clean, and very, very blue, and shades of blue depending on the depth, which it gets very deep. So Keep Torch Blue is their logo, reminding people that we want to keep the lake the way it is and to refrain from doing things that might harm the lake, because we are seeing changes in the lake, and as you know, all lakes are for many reasons. So that's what the Keep Torch Blue is.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Preservation everywhere. That's wonderful.
It is, and we have several groups that do that.
So you're in Helena Township, and Helena Township is in Antrim County. Can you tell us about some hidden gems or must-visit spots in Antrim County?
Yes, and when you mentioned Antrim County, before I forget to mention it, Antrim County became a county in the mid-1800s. It was originally called Magoozie County, named after a local Native American chief, but that was changed to Antrim, and several counties in Michigan are named for counties in Ireland. And so Antrim is named for County Antrim in Ireland. And so that's where that comes from.
Oh,
As far as hidden gems, we have lots of parks and tremendous number of parks that we'll, I'm sure, get to, and natural areas that families just flock to, and they're great. But we also have other museums in the area. Elk Rapids, another sister museum down about 15 miles to the west of us on Grand Traverse Bay. They have a fabulous museum. And then to the east of us, there's Bel Air Museum. And there's also one in Central Lake and Kalkaska. So those are kind of some must-visit spots, along with the many natural areas that we'll probably be talking about.
cool. Now, you mentioned already that Alden is a tourist and resort destination for thousands of people annually. What are some popular local events or festivals in Alden that visitors should check out?
Well, we have quite an array, and I should probably mention that there is now a Visit Alden website, visitalden.com, and there's also a Facebook page for Alden. We start our events with a couple of festivals. One is the Strawberry Festival in June, and we have other festivals as well, but the last one is in October. It's a harvest festival. There's 4th of July fireworks over Torch Lake, where there's hundreds, and I would even say 1,000. That sounds crazy, I know, but it's a big lake of boats that come to the south end of Torch for fireworks over the water. And because we're so far north, the fireworks don't even start until around 10:30 because it's still light until then in late June, early July.
Oh,
And what's just gorgeous, other than the fireworks over the water, is that when those boats all most everybody is from the north end of the lake because we're sitting at the south end. So as they travel home, the lake is alive with all of these little lights from their anchor light or that they keep on because it is very dark at that point. Shockingly, we have extremely few accidents, really none, with all those boats out there, and they're all headed north on the water. So it's kind of pretty. That's 4th of July. We also have, oh boy, there's so many. We have art festivals in the park right by the depot. That's not sponsored by us, but they're there at the park. There's Alden Days in July, the last weekend in July, where the park is filled with craftspeople and kid-themed fun. There's a parade and community barbecue, so it's very much little old-time town kind of fun. There's a quilt show sponsored by a local artisan group. And there's Paddle Antrim is an organization which sponsors kayak and canoe paddling events during the summer. We are part of a 55-mile chain of lakes, and there are dozens of stops. They've actually put a map together and put areas where you can come get in and out of the water when you're paddling these distances. Other than that, I think we have car shows. There's a British car show in July, a classic hot rod car show coming up this weekend in August. There's a train swap and meet, and we sponsor that at the depot. That's 3 weekends in August.
okay. Fantastic. Boy, you guys got a lot going on all summer.
Oh, it is. There is just so many things. And again, these are the scheduled festivals. I think I also wanted to mention that there are fishing tournaments on the lake. There's tournaments for bass and walleye, I think, are the most popular. So those are fun things too.
Wow, something for everybody.
There is.
Now, the lake is obviously the center of attention and the center of your community. But what are some other favorite outdoor activities that people enjoy around Torch Lake?
People do tend to come here for the lake, but also they tend to be outdoorsy or thinking of outdoors type of vacations. So there are lots of nature-based activities, including nearby Grass River Natural Area, which is a 1,500-acre wetland and lake and rivers forest preserve with 7 miles of trails. There's also Glacial Hills Hiking and Biking Area with 31 miles of trails through forests and hills. And it's quite challenging, actually. And when I'm out there hiking with a group I like to hike with, we do see people biking, and they seem to be having a great deal of fun. There's also the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, which offers 47,000 acres of varied natural area and 126 miles of trails to explore. And again, this is the first couple of that I mentioned are here in Helena Township. Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy borders the township and is in part of the county, but close by. There's also several preserves on Grand Traverse Bay, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from us, with miles of wide sandy beaches, and they are glorious to explore and to rock hunt. We have golf available. There's 5 beautiful, challenging courses at Shanty Creek and Shush Mountain nearby here in Helena Township. They also offer in the winter downhill skiing and cross-country skiing as well. And not too far away, there's courses at Grand Traverse Resort and Agaming. Agaming is on the other side of the lake and overlooks the lake and has an absolutely gorgeous course. And as far as other activities, I'd have to mention that we do see a fair number of weddings at the depot or down here at the harbor in Alden. So that's kind of a bit of an outdoor activity, kind of left to chance when you never know what the weather's going to do.
You have weddings at the depot?
Well, yes, because of the park, the depot has, I don't know, maybe it's 2 acres on the lake. So people will rent tents and they schedule this through the township and they are able to use the park itself and they get married there. Yes, I actually can see them from the window I'm sitting at when that happens. And then they like to also have the wedding right down at the harbor where there are some slips where people can come in and tie up their boats and walk into town. So they like to get married there too. There's a little lighthouse that was put up in memory of someone's family a few years ago. So people like to come down to the lighthouse and take pictures and they get married there too.
Wow,
I suspect it's people who probably had this was somehow relevant early in their relationship, and that's why they like to come back here to get married.
You're so lucky. Wow.
We are. And I don't think, I should also emphasize that this is a great fishing lake. There's bass and walleye tournaments and fly fishing in rivers nearby. And also when we do have ice, there's ice fishing. So those are also year-round activities. We see the bass boys out there on their bass boats skimming along, going from one end of the lake to the other when there's tournaments.
Wow. Now I imagine summer is the tourist season, and somewhere maybe Labor Day or something, stuff starts falling off and people start leaving. This is just me imagining this. This may not be the truth. But how do changing seasons affect life in Helena Township and Alden?
Well, you're absolutely right. It does change life in Alden. Our population is only around 900 here in the township. And I think that's kind of iffy because many of us do go away for a few months in the winter. So it's pretty quiet here. We only have 25,000 people county-wide, and most of those people live over closer to Traverse City and in Elk Rapids. So changing seasons absolutely change the flow of visitors. It's really pretty quiet, and several of the stores button up January through May. But the number of seasonal visitors have multiplied many, many times over in the recent past. And of course, as you say, their objective remains the same. It's all about recreation and the turquoise waters of Torch Lake that they come to enjoy. So they're out there boating, water skiing, swimming, relaxing on the lake. And in the winter, there are the few hardy souls come up for skiing and hiking in the winter. And now that the bikes are more available, they actually, with the different tires, they actually bring bikes up to the trails also and bike on the trails.
Wow, in the winter?
Yes. Yeah, they have those big spiky kind of tires. And Traverse City, I haven't even mentioned, Traverse City has a huge trail system called the TART. I think it's Traverse Area Recreational Trail System. And so there's Ironman races, it just goes on, everything you can imagine, really.
Very cool, very cool. Now, you've mentioned agriculture and how important it is to the area. What role does it play in the local economy?
Well, it's pretty substantial. It certainly was before. I'm sure that the tourist economy is very close, but we're home to a thriving agricultural community that produces cherries, apples, pears, peaches, and we're lucky enough that there are weekly farm markets throughout the area. There's also vineyards. Northwestern Michigan has a pretty lively wine community that's mostly on Old Mission Peninsula and Leelanau Peninsula to our west. But we do have a local vineyard which produces a popular line of sweet whites. And obviously, we can't go forward without mentioning that, Traverse City is, as they say, the cherry capital of the nation. The region produces about 70% of the national tart cherry crop. There's 90,000 tons annually of cherries that are taken out of the area. First trees were planted back in 1852, since we're talking about history. And we come in second only to Washington State for cherry production.
Wow, that is amazing. Who'd have guessed, right?
Yes.
Oh.
And again, the weather plays just as in any agricultural area, the weather plays a huge role in the crops and the success of the crops. So we're very dependent on the weather staying as stable as possible.
And you guys have wineries as well?
Oh, we do. Gosh, yes. Traverse City and Old Mission Peninsula. It's so beautiful up here. And there's lots of vineyards. And on Old Mission, it's quite high, the hills are. So you overlook East Bay and West Grand Traverse Bay. And from these hillsides, and in the spring, the cherry blossoms are absolutely beautiful. And the vineyards are starting to, turn in the fall. And those are beautiful.
I've got a cherry tree in my backyard, actually.
Oh, lucky you.
Well, not so lucky. I've been picking cherries off it the last couple of years. And this year I went out and I opened some of the cherries and they had little worms in them. And I was like, oh, what did I do wrong? And
well, probably nothing. We recently looked like the trees were absolutely full. And I was so excited in June because they looked like they were having such a great crop. But apparently it didn't get cold enough to kill off some particular insects that affect the tart cherries. And so they lost a great deal of the crop, couldn't be used. And I can't tell you what happened to the cherry, but whatever the insects were, and maybe it was something like what you experienced. But again, they looked like they had a fabulous crop. There was no frost. And I thought, boy, this is a great year for cherries. But so maybe you had the
same here. They look beautiful, but when I cracked them open, they had little worms inside.
Yikes!
Yeah, I know.
Everything is dependent on things being the way they are supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't want to use a bunch of chemicals on them, so I don't.
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do next year. Crack them open, I guess.
Perhaps you just have to enjoy how pretty they are and not enjoy the fruit. Yeah. Or next year could be a totally different year and it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true. Now, you mentioned a couple of times all the preservation efforts that are going on. What efforts are being made to protect all this natural beauty of the area?
We do have several local organizations, nonprofit, volunteer organizations. Again, we see that word volunteer coming up. One is the Torch Lake Protection Alliance, which you can certainly you join. It's only $100 a year, and they do fantastic work as they're trying to monitor the lakes. And, we do have issues with those nasty little zebra mussels having been brought in. And so they're monitoring the lake, as do also the Torch Conservation Center. There's the Three Lakes Association, the Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council, and the Grand Traverse Conservancy. And those are all volunteer and nonprofit organizations that work very hard to try to monitor our natural habitat and move to make sure that we take care of it as the best way we can.
Yeah.
We have 45 miles of shoreline along Torch Lake. And I think there's 1,500 addresses, and I don't want to say houses because they're just simply addresses, I would assume. But only 30% of the people around the lake are members. And that's really a shame. I mean, we should all be members because they do a lot of work to make sure that the lake is protected.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what their role is. I'll have to look them up on the internet, but I would assume it's a good one.
It is. Something most recently was that there's a new name for the Department of Natural Resources. I think it's called EAGLE. Don't ask me what it stands for. But the State Department, and they had a boat ramp down at the south end of the lake, which they have expanded. They bought an old property next door that had a lodge on it. So they were able to expand the boat ramp, which unfortunately, needed to happen because people needed to launch their boats and they needed a place to park their trailers then. So I guess it was inevitable. But unfortunately, some of their choices have not been, and this is shocking, but it's certainly true, have not been in the best interest of the lake. And so the Torch Lake Protection Alliance has been trying very hard to work with them to convince them to make a couple of changes to their plans that would be more advantageous to the lake and the environment. And I know that does sound counterintuitive, but that's the way it is.
Now, besides making a visit to the Depot Museum, which is mandatory for all listeners,
yes,
what are some favorite local activities for families and kids in Antrim County?
I don't want to miss the fact that in town, I'll start with talking about because lots of families come into town. There's plenty to see. There's little shops, there's an art gallery, there's a kitchen store that makes its own spices, and several shops specializing in Michigan-themed gifts and antiques and candle makers. And we also have restaurants, of course, and a muffin tin that has fabulous chocolate chip cookies and muffins. There's a wine tasting room and also a restaurant featuring specialty beers and a general menu. So if that doesn't suit your fancy, there are also, I think, as I've mentioned, there's certainly a focus on nature and outdoor fun. There's a wonderful camping area up at the north end of the lake. It's Barnes State Park, has campsites on a couple of miles of beautiful shoreline. So that's a kind of a fun thing for families to be camping. There's also 100-year-old, I think it's over 100-year-old YMCA camp called Helena. And this camp has provided campers summer activities for generations now. And it's so much fun to see writings about families that are third, fourth generation of kids coming to Helena. And they provide summer camp and day camp so kids can stay overnight or just go for the day for a week or more. And there's sailing and the normal camping activities, learning to appreciate the outdoors. There's something that I just became aware of, Raven Hill Discovery and Science Center in the county to the north of us, that would be a lovely destination for families. The Music House Museum over in Elk Rapids features antique, all kinds of different musical instruments, and been there for quite some time. And there's some interesting specialty farms that I think sound great to go to. There's one locally in our next community, Mansalona, called a Yak or Two Ranch. And a family has started this yak herd. They have 40 head of yak. And although they are from Southeast Asia and a distinct species, they have very interesting, I guess, their fur or hair, do I say, that stays clean and doesn't have the oils in it that other animal hair does. It is fascinating. Everybody has to look up yak. They're amazing, and apparently the meat is actually much less fatty and quite good. So a Yak or Two Ranch would be definitely something to go see. There's also in Williamsburg, the town just to our southwest, a family-owned 300-acre orchard and farm market offering tours and featuring miniature farm animals. Now, who doesn't like that? It's called Myrtle and Maud's, and that looks like great, great fun. There's lots of family-oriented parks and activities in Traverse City, just 25 miles away. And I should not go on without talking about picking fruit. Lots of families come, and in the local orchards, they make available you-pick kind of opportunities. So you can bring your family and learn what it's like to pick apples and cherries and berries in the midsummer. So that's kind of fun too.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for all that information. Michelle, the music in the background means that it's time for a break for a few minutes.
All right, that sounds good.
All right, listeners, we'll be right back after this important message talking about donating to the Helena Township Historical Society.
Attention history lovers and community supporters. Do you cherish the rich history and vibrant heritage of Alden, Michigan? The Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society needs your help to preserve the past for future generations. Located at 10670 Coy Street in the heart of Alden, the Alden Depot Museum is a treasure trove of local history, showcasing artifacts, photographs, and stories that bring the community's past to life. But we can't do it alone. We need your support. By donating to the Helena Township Historical Society, You are directly contributing to the preservation and celebration of Alden's unique heritage. Every dollar helps us maintain the museum, curate new exhibits, and host programs for all ages. Visit them online at aldendepot.com to learn more about their work and make a donation today. You can also connect with them on Facebook at the Alden Depot and the Helena Township Historical Society for the latest updates and events.
Together, we can keep our area's history alive. For more information or to make a donation, email us at aldendepot@gmail.com. Your support means the world to us and our community. Thank you for helping us preserve the stories and heritage of Alden, Michigan. Let's make history together.
This is Laura Weber, Executive Director of the Alabama Agricultural Museum at Landmark Park, and you're listening to Preservation Oaks.
This is Emily Faves, Executive Director of the Beltrami County Historical Society in Bemidji, Minnesota, and I love listening to Sean Thomas Radcliff on Microstream Radio.
This is Cheyenne Janstetter, Archives Manager and Outreach Associate at the Museum of Danish America, and I had a lot of fun as a guest on Preservation Oaks.
Yo-ho, brushless or lather, boys, whichever you can ocean.
50 cents for shaving cream, $1 for the lotion.
Old Spice means quality, said the captain to the bosun. So look for the package with the ship that sails the ocean. Yo-ho, yo-ho.
This is an alien from planet Zang, and I listen to Sean Thomas Radcliff and Preservation Oaks.
9 out of 10 family historians agree Preservation Oaks is the best podcast on the internet.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm Michelle Zeeman, and I'm from the Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society, located in Alden, Michigan. Sean, let's pick up where we left off, okay?
Yeah, welcome back. I am
Good to
so
be back.
happy you're here. Boy, what a wonderful place Alden is, and Helena Township, and oh my gosh, beautiful place.
It is a beautiful place, and we're not big city, we're small town, but holy moly, it is a beautiful place and a wonderful area to kind of go back in time and to a simpler, quieter place.
Yeah. Well, I bet people can really relax there if they come there as a tourist. I bet you have a lot of people that come there like every year and have been for decades.
Absolutely. There are many, many, many repeat visitors, people who came here as children. And many of the people that live here year-round are the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the earliest settlers. So, yes, It's a place worth returning to.
I wonder if the population is going to grow now that people can pretty much work anywhere because of the internet and all of that stuff. They can all work remotely. Maybe your population will go from 900 in the township to something, larger than that over the years.
Well, I think that's already happened. You are correct. Not so much in our township, but in the Traverse City area, we have seen a pretty big influx of people where housing has become more difficult because the pandemic affected everything. And at that point, I think people decided that they didn't have to be in a big city. And we do have, certainly ran into several people who have come to the area and relocated for the exact purpose that you have mentioned.
Yeah. Because I can be anywhere in the world with the internet.
Yes, and nobody knows where you are.
I want to get into some history here. Can you share some captivating stories from your county or town's past that truly highlight its character?
I absolutely can, and we do have an interesting history. Interesting especially because, of course, much of Michigan, northern Michigan, and all of Michigan was lumbered in the 19th century. But we had the water. We always had the water. So it changed things a little bit. And Before those resorters that came via the railroads in the late 19th and early 20th century, we go back further and can start back further than that, back with the Native American people. So the Alden Depot in our little community sits on the eastern shore of the lake we've been discussing. And before the resort, it had been home to bands of woodland native peoples, the Ojibwa, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi, who thrived on the lake's abundant fish and the game found in the virgin forest surrounding the lake. In fact, here's an interesting fun fact. Torch Lake takes its name from the native word Waswagonik, meaning lake of torches. The native people used pine torches at night, and when they went out in their canoes to fish, they would attract the whitefish to their boats for spearing. And even though that was centuries ago, at least a century and a half, people have continued to do that. They just have aluminum fishing boats they go out in and still spear whitefish by light that they're attracted to at night. That happens in the fall usually. So to get back to our history, by the mid-1800s, the federal government had begun surveying and then selling off land to homesteaders and speculators. And we remember that Michigan became a state, by the way, in 1837, to give you some context. Commercial lumbering across northern Michigan began in earnest around 1850. And here, the lumbermen could use the lakes and rivers to move vast quantities of cut trees. So they weren't hauling them miles across land. They were hauling them not that far through rivers and lakes where they could float them. To give you an idea, those trees were 80 to 120 feet tall. There are reports of trees up to 500 years being cut down that were 200 feet high and could be 12 feet across in diameter. Of course, that wasn't the norm, but they certainly were there. You can certainly also go back and find photographs of stacks of trees on the shore and what were called rafts of trees on the water. And those photographs have staggering numbers of trees in them. Most of the lumbering activity was accomplished in the winter when it was easier to move the timber on snow and ice, and the vegetation and insects were dormant. In the spring, the timber was pushed into the water and floated downstream. At this point here, it's 15 miles downstream out to Grand Traverse Bay. There were also large sawmills here on the lake shores and inland, but on the lake shores especially, which cut some of the huge logs into slab wood. And in fact, when I was a kid, there was still, you could walk out in the water, which of course was very clear and shallow ways out, and pick up that slab wood that was sitting in the sand. The logging camps were pretty dangerous places to work, and mortality was pretty high due to falling trees and fires and mill injuries and diseases borne by mosquitoes in the summer. And of course, respiratory diseases exacerbated by close indoor living in the winter. Speaking of living conditions, there's an interesting housing option that was used because of the proximity of lakes and rivers. Whenever feasible, when the camps were close to the water, instead of having canvas tents, they had two-story boarding houses that were built on floating platforms which housed the men and provided a space for dining. Those movable boarding houses were called wanigans, a native word meaning shelter. The industry first brought the men and their families to the area to support the camps, the towns, and the mills, and they quickly grew. The early families in our area came from New York and New England, and among those who helped create the town were the Thayers and the Lyons, the Coys, and the Armstrongs. One of the first families, Lucius and Helen Thayer, settled just north of Alden, where their first child was born in 1859. He was the first non-native child born in the county. Unfortunately, his dad, Lucius, died a few years later, leaving his widow, Helen, to survive another 36 years. I tell you this story because our township, Helena, is named in her honor, as she was a very community-minded and generous woman. And happily, their original farmhouse remains and is actively used as a family home today.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So our story really started out with the lumbering camps, but then the resorters followed shortly thereafter. First, the fishermen came, and then their families came with them, and they started camping. So,
wow, what a story. That is really cool. Now, is lumber still a big business there?
No, not at all. Lumbering in Michigan ended around 1910. And there's a caveat there. That was the that period of lumbering. But certainly state land in Michigan is leased out and trees are taken from various parts of the woods. I mean, it's a very controlled industry and I know nothing about it, but I certainly know that not necessarily right around us, because after the trees were gone, then this turned to farmland. So we have lots of woods, but not huge swaths of land like the state forests in Michigan, which there are hundreds of thousands of acres of state land. And those are leased out, as I said, to companies who come in and take the wood, but in a very organized and systematic manner.
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, I guess in the early 19th century, actually, there were people, the forestry department, I believe, started around that time in the early 10 or 15 years in 1900s. And the forestry people started coming up and looking at the land because they realized finally what was happening and that they needed to get control of it. So I guess the first of those kinds of ways of thinking began in the first decade or so of the 20th century.
So how did Alden start? What's the history of Alden?
Well, the history of Alden is, it's all about chance and serendipity, I guess. As I've said, we did have lumber camps here, so there was something here. And the lumber camp was originally called Spencer Creek after John Spencer, the manager of the original lumber camp. But in 1890, the Chicago and West Michigan Railroad became the Chicago and North Michigan Railroad. And the railroad line traveling from Traverse City, following along the chain of lakes to Bayview and Petoskey, was built. Now, the logical route would have been straight north through Elk Rapids from Traverse City, but instead, William Alden Smith, who was a banker and railroad guy from Grand Rapids, used his influence to establish a route that went east through Williamsburg and Barker Creek and then Spencer Creek, and then northeast to Bel Air, and then from there north to Petoskey. In 1881, statistics show the United States held 571 acres of land in Antrim County. The state of Michigan held 12,000 acres, and the railroad held 146,000 acres, much of which was up for sale. So William Alden Smith knew the railroad would cause the population in the area to increase, bringing more business to the railroad. It would also take business away from their rival, the Grand Rapids and Indiana line. As construction of the railroad continued, William Alden Smith remained a friend of Spencer Creek and was always available to help the community. Grateful citizens decided to rename Spencer Creek in his honor, and in 1891, it became known as Alden. The first train depot was built in approximately 1892, and the railroad itself incorporated into the Pere Marquette in 1900. Alden then became alive with the arrival of the railroad. In 1904, the resort special became operations, and I love to look at the old literature that the Pere Marquette and other railroads put out, beckoning people to use the railroad to come north. It's so much fun to see those, and we have several examples of those at the depot.
Oh, cool.
So this resort special, when that would come into town each day, it was a buzz with activity of the summer people arriving and departing. And Alden soon became known as the leading summer resort between Grand Rapids and Charlevoix. More tickets were sold with a destination of Alden than any other spot along the line. Now, the original depot burned down in 1907, and the current depot that we inhabit today was built in 1908.
Wow.
So, an interesting point about William Alden Smith. He went on to become a senator and was made chairman of the committee formed in Washington, D.C. to investigate the Titanic disaster.
Oh.
So he went on to bigger and better things. Getting back to Alden, the first general store opened in 1870, and it was owned by Reuben Coy. And that family, the Coy family, operated that store for 53 years. Around it grew a bank, hotels, and other businesses, which today constitute our little village. Once the land was cleared, farms began to sprout up, and before roads were built, the railroads became important in the transport of people and supplies.
I'll be darned. So one of your main streets there in Alden the name is Coy Street.
Yes, and it is certainly after the Coy family.
Very
And
cool.
when the resorters first came, I love looking at these photos. These people would get off the trains and they would set up camp. And this is again in the early 20th century. And we have wonderful collection of photographs of these family camps. And there would be the Ohio camp, and a friend here, part of the depot was a Fowler family, and they had a camp at the south end of the lake. And you see these ladies in their white summer dresses, I mean, right down to their shoes. They have hats and leather shoes and tables laid with tablecloths and china dishes. And we have photos of them fishing and sitting around campfires, lounging in hammocks and chairs with large white tents in the background. It's amazing what these people went through just to enjoy this beautiful place that we have the privilege of inhabiting today.
Now, camp back then would be like an RV park today, right?
Yes, except it was generally, yes, it was just that they all knew one another and came up as a pack of people
Right.
enjoy.
Yeah, they would get together in their wherever they came from and come as a group.
Absolutely. And it's not that there was danger in this area. I mean, it wasn't that they wanted to come, but it was just out of love of being the outdoors. There was, I think in the early 1900s, there was a real push to embrace the outdoors. And that's what these people were doing. And besides, it was healthier because most of these people came from the Midwest and southern Michigan, but a great number came from Indiana and Illinois and Chicago. And it was a healthy place to be in the summer when the cities were warm.
Sure. You're getting out of the city and going to the country, and you've got that wind coming off the lake. And yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there were boats. There weren't a lot of boats, of course, in the beginning, but they did have little boats and rowboats and canoes and things. So, and then they started buying property, and then they started building on the property. So that was how it all began.
Thank you for that. What unique aspects of your town's heritage present both challenges and opportunities for preservation?
Well, the fact that we ended the 20th century as a resort town, which attracts more tourists than full-time residents, has created a challenge for local community groups who depend on permanent residents to be available to volunteer and keep the community nonprofits running. Of course, the flip side of that, the opportunity, is that we have an endless flow of visitors with whom we can share our story. But the challenge is that we need people to share the story. And most of the people who were active in our organization, I would say to the tune of 90%, either kind of aged out. They either left the area to be with family in other states, or they simply, they passed away. So we don't have those huge numbers of people. When people retired in the 80s and 90s, they were older. They were already older, but they were still looking for something to do, and they became active. And now people are less likely to do that, even if they do retire here, because the world is so much smaller to get to.
Mm-hmm.
People were at one time happy to be here, and they'd stay, go away for a month or something to visit family, but this was home. But now people are more likely to seek their adventures other places and not be as likely to volunteer and locally.
I hope people listening understand that you've got to volunteer in order for this historical society to prosper and to preserve the history of the area and teach and educate the public and the school children about that history.
It's integral to our survival to have people. It's not just the donations that we need, it's the hands and the minds that we need to be out there. We don't have enough people to go out to the schools and to do educational things that we would love to do, but there just simply aren't enough of us to do that.
Right. Now, can you reveal some lesser known yet fascinating stories about your town that your organization highlights?
Well, there are a couple of urban myths that I have to share, because I've been hearing them since I came here when I was 11 years old. One of the stories is, of course, these involve the lake. The legend has it that down at the bottom of the lake, there were huge springs that fed the lake. and that in these springs there were huge timbers that were sunk in the early lumbering days, spinning away in the springs. And supposedly divers had gone down and seen these anomalies at the lake bottom. And because of these huge springs, it was impossible to retrieve drowning victims, because there were incidents of people who have drowned on the lake who were never recovered. And so the story was that they were down there below these huge turning timbers. That is not true. The lake is fed by many springs, little springs, and also the great watershed area around us that feeds into the lake. But the reason that people were not recovered was because the water temperature is very cold, and the natural processes that usually cause bodies to emerge cannot occur. So that was one kind of weird story that went around for decades. Another urban myth was that National Geographic magazine named Torch Lake the third most beautiful lake in the world. You'll see that in various places. And it is a beautiful, and we've already identified, exceptional lake, but this honor really never occurred. Local commercial concerns like to promote the idea, but it's not true. It is very beautiful, though.
Now, I was reading that it's the second largest inland lake in Michigan.
It is true. That is true. It is second to Houghton Lake, which is right in the center of the upper part of the state here. And that's a big round lake. It's very shallow, though, but it is it's really big. I don't think you can see very well. I don't think you can see the other shore. It's really quite large, but very shallow. So we're second. Yes, we are second to them.
Torch Lake is just beautiful. I highly encourage anybody with a map app to go there and go into Street View and just take a look at the town of Alden and everything going on. It's absolutely beautiful.
It is, and it's very much appreciated by those of us who are still here.
Now, what inspired the founding of the Helena Township Historical Society?
As I sit here in my house, I look over to my right and I see the house that houses the person that began all of this, my next door neighbor, Dorothy Walter. How the Township Historical Society came to be is pretty extraordinary, and I think more than anything shows how much impact a single person or a small group of people can have if they are determined and they find a few, even, like-minded people to help them out. Our historical society is not attached to a presidential library or university or a commercial enterprise that changed the world. What I think is inspiring about our story is not our national or global significance. It is the significance of ordinariness, the significance of what can be accomplished by one determined visionary person who absolutely would not give up on a dream. This is a story that should inspire anyone who wishes to preserve the past for future generations and not settle for letting it disappear. So here is the story. In 1989, a small core group of 6 families banded together to create this society. It was led by Dorothy Walter, who lived next door to the depot and who had, along with her husband, just retired from their jobs downstate. Hearing that the dilapidated, and I recall what a sorry mess it was, dilapidated depot was about to be sold and probably demolished, she joined with a local realtor and the township supervisor, Al Hoadley, who was extremely instrumental in getting the funding and getting this started. And they determined that the depot had to be saved. First and foremost, funding had to be secured to purchase the building from the railroad and then rehabilitate the structure. Grants were applied for, and happily, over $240,000 was secured from the state, natural resource and state equalization funds, and from Rotary Charities in Traverse City. In June of 1989, the worn-out depot began a rebirth as a functioning museum, eventually becoming home to the newly formed Helena Township Historical Society's growing collection of postcards, photographs, local histories, and artifacts. Donations mostly came from area families. Now, remember, this is the 1980s and 90s, so there were a lot of people that were second generation, so there were plenty of items from the earliest time in the town to donate. So donations came from those families, and they were the descendants of the pioneers from the late 19th century. Today, the building and grounds are the property of the township, And the Historical Society is responsible for operating the museum and owns the contents, including all artifacts and objects. In 2009, the Depot building was designated and registered as a historic site by the Michigan Historical Commission.
All right.
I look back at meeting minutes from the 80s and 90s when Dorothy's band of hardworking people. And what struck me was how so much was accomplished by so few. In addition to the structure renovation, this small group had to develop all the necessary components of a nonprofit organization: mission statements, constitution, budgets, nonprofit status application, and the ongoing and never-ending programs to enlarge the membership, create fundraisers, acquire artifacts, and then actually staff the museum to create interest in the community. It takes tremendous motivation and commitment. And Dorothy Walters served as our president for over 20 years, its curator for an additional 10, and always its heart and soul. Happily, last year, Dorothy was the deserving recipient of the History Society of Michigan's Lifetime Achievement Award, a very, very significant honor. And this year, she reached her 100th birthday. She is now retired, but remains our inspiration.
Very cool. Dorothy's still alive.
Yes, she sure is. She's alive and kicking, and a very determined and very independent woman. And she was certainly our inspiration.
Yeah, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. You know, I want to share it especially because people need to be inspired, and they're generally inspired by other people, I think. And it just shows you how much can be accomplished by just a few.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just marvelous. You know, people get together and you can move mountains together. I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the organization. You can visit them at their website at www.aldendepot.com. You can email them at aldendepot@gmail.com. Their Facebook page, you can find them at the Alden Depot and the Helena Township Historical Society, and you can send them mail at 10670 Coy Street, and that's named after Reuben Coy. 10670 Coy Street, P.O. Box 204, Alden, Michigan 49612. And please send your donations into that. Please send your checks in, and please go there and visit, and please volunteer.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome. So, Michelle, how does your organization serve the community, and what are its primary goals and the demographics of its membership?
We hope to be seen as kind of the guardians of the past. That's really our main objective. We safeguard artifacts and collections, and our goal is to help the community and visitors understand and reflect on our beginnings and appreciate the stories and the work of those who carved out a living from the wilderness and continued building their lives, family, and town. And that's the town that we appreciate today. The demographics of our membership are mostly people who no longer live in the area. Probably about, certainly more than 50% have addresses outside our local area. Now, some of that is because they have a second address in a location that's their winter location. That's where they get their mail. But really, the majority of it is that we have many members outside of our area who used to be here or who are the families of people who were here earlier on. Most of our members are over, I would say 90% of our members are over the age of 60. So it's very hard to recruit younger people at this point in time.
Okay. Well, good luck attracting them.
Thank you.
What's your personal journey, Michelle? How did you get to your current role in the organization?
Well, when I retired, and that was back in 2007, I was here in Alden more frequently. This was our summer house. And since I was here and my husband wasn't retired yet, I decided to help out at the museum. I kept seeing my neighbor, Dorothy, and her husband, who was with us at the time, working there most days. I mean, really, it seems like every day their car was there. And that was quite an inspiration and a lesson for me in how one person can make a difference. And I always loved learning about history from the time I was a kid. Some of the earliest novels I remember were historical fiction, even when I was in junior high, I think. So I've always loved history, and so I suppose natural that it would lead me in this direction.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you recount any particularly memorable visitor experiences or feedback?
Well, I think what I most like and what is kind of makes the hair on the back of your neck kind of stand up is when visitors come in and they'll exclaim over finding a familiar face or a familiar name, an old photo or their family name, especially if they're not expecting it and they kind of put two and two together. So that's kind of neat. And we have a section of old interior wall of graffiti that Dorothy and company decided to leave, which is so neat. So there's graffiti from the 1920s, 1930s. That's kind of fun. But there's one statement that I think it really echoes how Alden and how this place claims a forever place in our hearts and how it charms us. And it was written by a Mike O'Keefe. I have no idea who that was, on August 3rd, 1978. And here's what he says. And there was Alden, and I carry it with me like a photograph in the inside pocket of my mind. And each day it wears, is soiled, gets thinner and wrinkled, but still it is Alden. And, no matter how much things change, we all kind of harken back to memories of our youth or younger days that meant a lot to us. And that's really kind of sums up how so many of us feel about Alden. It will always be carried with us.
Oh, I hope Mike went on to be a poet. That's really good. Wow.
I hope so. I thought that was pretty neat too. I like it.
Now you've got this beautiful depot, and I mean it's really beautiful, and it's big, and lots of stuff goes on there. What types of exhibits can visitors currently explore at the Alden Depot Museum?
Well, our exhibits include both permanent and temporary displays, and we change them about every year or so. Our exhibits come from our own collection of items, but sometimes we are able to, someone in the community will donate something temporarily to the exhibit, which is always fun. Currently, we're showcasing some of the pioneering families. We've never done that before. Pulled out family information and photos, and specifically the Coys, and I think the Lyons are on display right now. That's Lyon, Lyons. We also have railroad and railway memorabilia. So that's kind of fun, seeing the old pictures and schedules and pamphlets and things. We also bought a couple of years ago a really neat, don't know what you call it, but the ticket window. It's a beautiful oak ticket window with the grill and the beautiful glass above the window. So it's this freestanding, beautiful dark oak ticket window, and it has some shelves on it and some drawers, and the ticket person would be standing on the other side in the office. So we purchased that, and we're so happy to have it because it's just perfect. That's part of the railway display. We also have a display on the early resorts, pictures and information from the resorts that began in the area in the 1870s. We have a display on music. There were, interestingly enough, these little tiny towns always had a band. And so we have pictures and instruments from those early bands that were in the communities. The Methodist Church here in Alden just celebrated 150 years, so we have a display on their memorabilia.
Very cool.
And our crowning jewel is our new Family History Center. We carved out an area in one of our rooms to make available space for anyone to come in and pull out information, files, photographs, whatever, on family history. And so we're very excited about that, and we're making those stories available to anyone who wishes to visit. Lastly, the train room is a 20 by 40 room, and this takes up about a third of the depot building. And it contains an outstanding model train collection featuring one of the largest multi-scale engines and hundreds of feet of track, all traveling around replicas of local buildings and countryside. So apparently, and I'm not a train person, but there are multi-scale, there's different gauges of railroad, and this is a really beautiful display in this room of hundreds of feet of track. and different types of gauges and engines, big ones, little ones. So people come in, I like to see the kids come in and their jaw kind of drops because it's all working. They can watch the trains go around the track. So that's great fun. And really, what is a depot museum without a train room, right?
No kidding. Very cool.
We also have a new boxcar we bought. Well, it's an old boxcar we bought, and along with the Alden volunteers have renovated it, and it will be home to a collection of our train memorabilia that we don't have room to display currently. So that's going to be great fun.
I went to a train museum in Mesa, Arizona when I was there in April, and they had a room about that size with a huge layout of trains and model trains, that kind of thing. And they had little buttons that you could push all the way around, and every button caused something to happen. And what I mean is, like, I pushed a button and this garage lit up and a car came out, and then it went back in. So every time you push the button, something happened in the scenery.
Yes. Yeah. How fun would that be for kids, especially for anybody?
And there were kids running all over, just looking for those buttons to push and seeing what happened next, right? Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it was great. So are there any parts of your collection displayed outside the museum, like in the local VFW or the post office or the library or anything like that?
We do partner with the Alden District Library, which is a fabulous place, and they're really up to date. For a little tiny community, they do such a fantastic job. And they have rotating displays inside the library. So we partner with them in a couple of areas. We will put displays out of items from our own collection. But then we found that they have a great group of people who are interested in their educational offerings, and they do all kinds of lectures and have authors come. So we joined in, and our president, Paul DeLange, who has so much history and information in his head, will do lectures. So he's part of the lecture series at the library. And last year and this year he's going to do a second part, but he's doing how the town was platted. And it's fascinating to hear how this village was originally platted and who the families were and individual stories about the families. So that's great fun. So we do partner with them. And of course, we don't have any other exhibits in other parts of the community, but we do have outside of the museum on the original train tracks display. We have a 25-ton GE engine, our newly acquired boxcar that's being renovated, and a wonderful original caboose. And the caboose is fun because it has the original configuration inside. So you can see where the bed was, where the fellow in the caboose would sleep, and the seating area and the little dining table. So that's great fun. And so that's outside, but that's the only exterior or external exhibit that we have.
Oh, very cool. Michelle, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's time for us to take a break for a few minutes.
All right.
All right, listeners, we'll be right back after this message about becoming a member of the Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society.
Calling all history enthusiasts and community champions. Do you have a passion for preserving the past and celebrating heritage? Join the Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society and become a vital part of the mission. Located at 10670 Coy Street in beautiful Alden, Michigan, the Alden Depot Museum is a captivating destination filled with fascinating artifacts, photos, and stories from our rich history, and they want you to be a part of it. As a member of the Helena Township Historical Society, you'll enjoy exclusive benefits, like the opportunity to participate in the Historical Society of Michigan's Fantastic History Hounds lecture series, which offers weekly Zoom lectures, and the Society's regular newsletter updates. Joining is easy. Visit them online at aldendepot.com to sign up today. Stay connected on Facebook at the Alden Depot and the Helena Township Historical Society for the latest news and events.
Your membership helps the Society keep Alden's history alive for future generations. For more information, email us at aldendepot@gmail.com. Together, we can preserve our unique heritage and make a lasting impact. Thank you for considering membership with the Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society. We can't wait to welcome you to our community.
Hey, historical and genealogical societies. We all know that getting young people and families involved in our societies can be tough. But don't worry, there are plenty of simple, effective ways to make your organization more inviting for younger folks and families. Here are 10 great ideas to get you started. Number 1. Get hands-on with history. Host workshops and demonstrations where families can handle artifacts, make historical crafts, or participate in reenactments. Interactive activities are a fantastic way to make history exciting and memorable for all ages. Number 2. Embrace technology. Consider using things like augmented reality or virtual reality to bring history to life. These tech tools can create fun and educational experiences that younger generations will love. Number 3. Plan family-friendly events. Organize themed days with activities for both kids and adults, like scavenger hunts or storytelling sessions. Seasonal events tied to holidays are also a great way to make history relevant and fun for families. Number 4. Create youth programs. Start programs that fit with local school curriculums or offer internships and volunteer positions where young people can learn about historical research, archiving, or museum work. Number 5. Partner with schools and clubs. Build relationships with local schools and youth organizations. You can offer special programs or projects that help kids learn about local history while earning badges or fulfilling school requirements. Number 6. Get social online. Use platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube to share fun historical facts, behind-the-scenes glimpses of your society, or even online challenges and contests. These are perfect for engaging younger audiences. Number 7. Offer membership perks. Consider special rates or trial memberships for families. You could even create a youth ambassador program where young members help spread the word about your society in exchange for fun perks. Number 8. Highlight diverse stories. Focus on sharing lesser-known stories or those that might resonate more with younger audiences, especially ones involving social justice or local heroes. Interactive exhibits, like touchscreens or build-your-own history projects, can make these stories come alive. Number 9. Get the community involved. Encourage the community to participate in projects like oral history collections or local history tours. Partnering with local businesses for events or fundraisers can also help bring in new faces. And last but not least, number 10. Be flexible with event times. Make sure your events and meetings are at times that work for families, like weekends or early evenings. Offering virtual options can also make it easier for busy families to participate. By trying out some of these strategies, you can make your society a welcoming place for younger people and families, ensuring that our local history is appreciated for generations to come.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. We're here today with Michelle Zeeman from the Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society. What a wonderful organization. I was going through the town in Street View using my favorite map app when I noticed a big red caboose sitting there. It's really nice. I want to thank you, Michelle, for the information you provided about your organization, and welcome back.
Well, thank you. It is great to be back and happy to share this information with you and your listeners.
Michelle, I ask this question of every guest. If your building were to catch fire, what things would you grab on your way out?
We don't want to lose the photos, the postcards, and the family files. Those are the most important things because sometimes you can find artifacts, but you can't replace those pieces of history.
Yeah, I hope you've got those in a place that's well protected.
Well, we're getting there. Yes, indeed.
Fantastic. What notable artifacts or records have been donated to your organization, and how do they enrich your collection?
I think perhaps one of the more unusual collections that we have are the plat books from the earliest days of Antrim County. And they are wonderful resources for researching original property owners and farms. And we also have collections donated by area youth camps, which really thrived in the early to the mid 20th century. So many people attended these camps. And so we have many photographs, memorabilia, and stories from multiple generations of campers. There were 4 actual camps around the lake, boys and girls camps, that were heavily attended for decades. So we're really happy to have those collections. And of course, obviously, the trains. And what would we be without the train room and the hundreds of feet of track and trains?
Who maintains all that? Do you have volunteers that are experts in maintaining trains?
Well, our president is absolutely an expert, and he is really responsible for much of that and designing the collections and having them come in from different people. He's part of a railroad club here in northwestern Michigan, and they're actually coming up will be their last weekend of their annual train show and train swap. They are here each August for 3 weekends, and they kind of take over the museum. And those guys, boy, oh boy, do they know their stuff. And so while they're there, they kind of update and work on the trains, but Paul does too. And then another of our members is a train guy. And so they kind of keep things running.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Indeed.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, you wouldn't, I mean, obviously I can turn on the light switch and that's about it. So
yeah,
good that we have that expertise.
I wouldn't know how to even approach maintaining a train. Oh my gosh.
No, and they're all different. There's little ones and big ones and different gauges of track. And, just like any hobby, once you get into it, it's much more intensive than what it looks like from the outside.
Now, how's your organization approaching the digitization of its documents and photographs for future accessibility?
Well, this year we focused on sorting through many, many boxes of items collected over the decades and then continuing to organize the newly found items or newly recovered items. And ultimately, we're going to scan and digitize as much as possible in coming years. But it really has not been done in the past. So we don't have any special museum software. We just try to use Microsoft products that we're familiar with, and that's as far as we've gotten. So that is definitely on our upcoming to-do list. But first, we had to get through really sorting through decades of collections.
Oh, yeah. That's very smart of you to do that, because I'll tell you, if something happens, or even just to preserve and protect things properly, you have to know what you have.
Yep, absolutely. And also just ensuring it, and the insurance company wants specific information. So we have to go through that and understand what we have again.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, can you provide any kind of an idea to the audience of the size and scope of your collection?
We have we estimate 400 photographs, and that's pretty rough in estimate, and certainly probably 100 or so vintage postcards. And we're always collecting. So we keep adding to it, but we only want to add items that are specific to our local area. And so we're being very choosy about what we add on. So again, we're just kind of going through, we have many, many old items of clothing that have been donated. So we're going through those, and it's pretty big collection of things. And we're just getting to unbox a lot of the things that haven't been looked at for quite some time.
Yeah. And who knows what state of preservation they're in and Whether are they all in a climate controlled area?
No, they're not. And so that's another thing that it's really, we had the depot, and then the Alden volunteers built a 2-story a garage and an upstairs room, and that's where a great deal of the collections are kept. So yeah, we definitely need to manage that better, and looking for cabinetry that will be fireproof, and we make sure that we continue to take good care of that.
Yeah,
the collections.
It's just a never-ending thing, and especially when people trust you with their artifacts, their family possessions, and they think, oh, I'm giving this to the Historical Society, and it's going to be kept in perpetuity and kept properly by people who know what they're doing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we do want to honor that trust.
Now, how is your organization funded? What are your financial goals for the current year?
We are solely funded by annual dues, which are $15 per family, and our members are generous. They do give us donations, but next year we are planning to expand that one level of family membership and offer a business membership to local commercial concerns. We don't have any current funding from the government or charitable or corporate entities at all. We did apply for a grant for a fireproof cabinet. Michigan Historical Society, which is a fabulous organization, has some grant money available each year, and so we'll be trying again this year for that. But we are just a small all-volunteer 501c3, and we really depend on the individual donations. We like to ask people the question, how can you help us save our heritage? Well, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, become a member, 2, make a donation, or 3, become a volunteer. And so that really is how we support the organization. And our financial goals are simply to try to expand our membership to include commercial entities next year.
Yeah. With the winter there, you have to maintain those box cars and caboose and engines sitting outside in the winter, and then you have to maintain that depot as well.
Yes, and the depot itself is the building itself, thankfully, is owned by the township. So they are responsible for repairs, but I will say the Alden Volunteers, that local community group, the guys, they call themselves the Boys of Summer. They're the ones that really do all the maintenance and the cleaning of the outside of the building. They just power washed the outside of the building last week and trimmed the shrubs around the building. So they do maintenance for us, and that is free to us, thankfully.
Thank God for the Alden Volunteers.
Indeed. I don't know what we do without them.
Wow. So what kind of fundraising activities or opportunities are available to support your organization's mission?
We have a couple of fundraisers each summer, and our biggest one has always been the June cottage decor and antique sale. And that's a consignment sale. So we ask people to bring things, and it's always been a pretty huge event. But they'll bring their own items to sell. I think they call these things tag sales. I have donated or brought my own items, and the depot takes 20% of whatever it is that you get. So if I sold an item for $100, $20 of it would go to the depot. And that's been one of our big fundraisers. And then the other thing is, right now during the train show that happens these 3 weekends in August, we collect different train items that are sold there at the train shows, and that benefits 100% for the depot.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I hope that train show is very successful this year.
Yes, we do too. We were there a couple days ago, my husband and I, when it's open Saturday and Sunday afternoons, and there was a nice group of people, and so I think that's always pretty well attended.
You mentioned that membership is your primary funding for the Historical Society and the Depot Museum. Did you mention the membership levels and the membership benefits?
Well, the membership levels is simple. It's just the family membership, which is $15 annually and payable each spring when we send out our renewal applications. What a benefit to our members, and this is fantastic, and I take advantage of this all winter long, and I'm actually a member on my own. But the Historical Society of Michigan is really big, and they are very, very active and very supportive. And they allow our members to access their Zoom educational offerings that they have every either Tuesday or Wednesday. It's actually the History Alliance part of the organization. And the episodes are part of the History Hounds lecture series. And they're hour-long Zoom lectures that are put on mostly by professionals and address all kinds of interesting subjects. From scientific things, I've learned about rocks, I've learned about geologic history, to social and cultural issues, to Native American tribe issues, just in just general history. They're fantastic. And so as a member of our organization for $15 a year, you can access that series of lectures from the Historical Society of Michigan. That's fantastic. And it's absolutely worth the membership in their organization as well, but certainly a nice bonus for our own members.
Yeah, that's a great benefit. Wow.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah. Excellent. History Hounds. That's very cool. All right.
I've learned a great deal.
No kidding. Now, you mentioned earlier that presentation that Paul gave on the streets, I think it was.
Yes, when the town was laid out and
platting.
He's doing the platting of the town. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was looking for that online all over the place and couldn't find an online recording of it. But
it should be cool. It should be with the Alden District Library. I was actually there, so I didn't go looking for it. But he's doing a second one in October.
Very cool.
That was just really neat. Just fun to see how these little places came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, everybody relies on volunteers. Volunteers are so important. In your area, being that you have like 900 people in the township and thousands of people that come annually, to the area for resort purposes and tourist purposes, you always are in the business of trying to attract volunteers. It's sort of, in my mind anyway, your second business because just there's so many people that come in and then leave. You're always going to be in that business. What kind of volunteer opportunities are available for community members looking to get involved?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's always difficult. And even our permanent residents during the summer, everybody's busy hosting families. So it's very difficult to carve out time. And we're only open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Although the workers are there in May and in September also. But what we tried to do is make it simple for people to volunteer. So what we divided it up into were 4 work groups. And we were looking for people with financial skills or basic accounting. So that was one group. That just helps us with creating budgets and giving us some extra expertise, financial reports that we could be doing. The second would be organizational skills to work on files and artifacts and historical documents, just sorting through things and getting them ready for digitization. Computer skills also to help record and transfer information from paper to electronic copies. Communication, marketing skills and communication, helping with community outreach, ways to promote the museum and recruit new members. And what's important is to know that you don't have to donate 8 hours a week. You don't have to donate 8 hours a month. Come and talk to us and give us an hour of time. It's very small increments of time really are always helpful.
Well, let me ask you this. The depot is open until like Labor Day, you said?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So the depot, then the museum, ceases operation for the season on Labor Day, but the Historical Society is different than the museum. Do your volunteers still volunteer through the winter at the Historical Society?
Well, not really. After our October, we have our annual meeting the first week of October, and we pretty much go dormant other than I'm the secretary, so I monitor the Gmail address, and Barb monitors Facebook, and I also monitor the web page. So we'll be doing things like that during the winter, and we'll all have little individual projects. Lene will keep working on files. She stays here all winter, so she'll probably come and grab some files and keep working on the organization of those files during the winter. So we're all doing little things during the winter, but not something that would be evident to outsiders other than me answering any emails.
Well, I'm just thinking digitization could go on. Well, it depends. Is the depot heated?
No.
Yeah.
So we use the community center, which houses the library and the township offices, and we can bring things there. And that's actually where we have our October meeting as well, so we don't freeze. You know, in October, it can be chilly or it could be lovely, but more than likely it's chilly.
Yeah. Okay. Now I understand. Okay. Yeah.
And really, some of us leave too. Either we leave for several months or we leave for a couple months and visit family or whatever. So
yeah.
So we're subject to the same thing. We're subject to resort-itis as well.
Well, I was thinking, you know, if you could work on the digitization over the winter and then open up for the public again, right? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. What we do is the exhibits, like we'll do our research for exhibits and have the exhibits ready to go and do a printing out of items. So that's the kind of stuff that a few of us do.
Very cool. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Does your organization capture oral histories or oral interviews?
Yes, we have. And Dorothy was very good about that in those decades when, as I think I mentioned earlier, many of the people who were the grandchildren or children of the original pioneers were in their elderly years. And she did capture those. And of course, at that time, we were talking VCR tapes and cassette tapes. So we have to have those transferred to something a little bit more modern. So, and also, you know, several histories have been taken down, and we have a couple of wonderful books. Well, there's several books on the area. In particular, there's a couple that do have recorded those stories, not verbatim, but the stories of those families. But yes, we do have the oral histories, and we do have a small list of individuals who we would like to reach out to and complete a few more.
That would be great. Dorothy was certainly a visionary capturing all that.
Oh boy. Yep. It's just, she's pretty phenomenal. And boy, when she got that award last year, there is nobody that would have been more deserving. You donate 30 years, 35 years of your life, and you don't even have a background in history. I mean, this woman was a social worker, amongst other things that she did, but that's what she retired from downstate. And so she had to learn all this. I mean, how many people do that?
Yeah, no kidding.
Not many.
Michelle, can you share some notable publications your organization utilizes and promotes?
We have been blessed, especially by a couple of people. Over the past 3 decades, local authors have interviewed many of the individuals that grew up in the area and from the original families and put their stories in books documenting local life. One of those is written by Priscilla Miller, and it's called Reflections at the Water's Edge. And that's strictly about Helena Township and Alden. And it's a wonderful book, lots of old photographs. Also, we had a local couple who they were actually from, I think, Cincinnati, but they were lifelong summer residents. I think their parents or his parents were here originally, who are now gone. But their name was Mary Kay and Edward McDuffie. And they have a fabulous, big, well-researched hardcover book called Torch Lake, The History of Wasswagonic. These books, I think, are out of print. However, you can still find them on eBay and Amazon. There's also Glenn Newman, Neumann, wrote a series of books. I think there's 6 or 8 volumes called Bay Breezes. And he, again, recorded many histories of individuals that he interviewed, and it's full of photographs. And lastly, there was a Walter Cowles, a local man, Cowles, wrote Antrim Steamers, again, with local histories of the boating part of the community and how boats were used before the trains were here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, very cool. I want to give the contact information for the organization once again. Their website is www.aldendepot.com. You can email them at aldendepot@gmail.com. Find them on Facebook at the Alden Depot and the Helena Township Historical Society. You can visit them, and I hope you do. The Depot Museum is at 10670 Coy Street in Alden, Michigan. And you can send them mail to P.O. Box 204, Alden, Michigan 49612. Does that all sound correct?
That is absolutely correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate the support.
I ask this question of every guest just to get your thoughts because you're a professional in this area. How do you believe we can inspire the current generation to stay engaged with history and community support?
Well, that's a very important question, Sean, and a real tough one. I think society and our culture in general is going in a different direction than one that was influenced by and grew up hearing the stories of the past. Those of us born prior to, say, 1980 were the children and grandchildren of the generations who saw tremendous change in their lives from poverty and wars. They saw great opportunity and great disasters. We were steeped in that history. That's what we grew up hearing. We can all remember those stories told by parents and grandparents, but that has changed, I believe. Aside from the historical societies and museums, there really seems to be little interest in sharing our own ancestor stories with the latest generations. And with that lack of storytelling and sharing, there comes, I think, kind of a general apathy for all that has made us who we are. While promoting the value of history in early education settings is really important, I mean, I think that schools certainly need to, local schools even need to probably emphasize local history more. I think this appreciation for history, just like all other positive life lessons, begin with purposeful parenting in the home. I have to laugh because as I think about that and say it, I remember something from a philosophy class years ago. I don't think that this concern about the youth is a new concern. You can trace the same concerns back to Socrates, who said, "The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise." And so I guess this is not a new concern, the idea that new generations may not be following the path that we would have preferred them to follow. And even more recently, when I was looking at some earlier writings from Dorothy Walters, she was concerned back in 1989 that our history was being forgotten and not emphasized enough. And that was one of the things that inspired her to start this whole endeavor. So to answer your question, I think that the love of history begins with people sharing their own family histories. And with that generates curiosity. And you have to be curious in order to want to learn. And learning about history is integral to all of us. We need to respect our history and understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. There were so many people that gave so much to get the community to where it is today, just working hard and cutting down those trees. And whether you agree with the environmental impact or not doesn't matter, because those were the times in history when cutting down trees was the way that they supported the growth of our country. You know, Chicago and all of those cities were built with that timber.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. You can't change history or judge based on what we know today. Right. You can only judge people based on the lives that they lived and the environment that they lived in. And they had to survive. And God knows how they did. I think we're far weaker than they were. They are definitely inspirational, and we can't forget them. We shouldn't forget them.
No, we shouldn't. Michelle, if resources and volunteers were unlimited, what new priorities and goals would your organization pursue, and how would it transform your operation?
That's an interesting question, and a good one to ponder on. If resources were unlimited, first and foremost, I think we need to have a stable, committed, paid professional staff person to manage and plan the workings of the organization. Someone who, if not 12 months a year, at least 6 months a year, would really be able to spend the time and effort and energy to get us on track and make sure that we stay on track and to look at how we can grow. Aside from having that consistent individual spearheading efforts, we would want to see our records digitized, more community lectures. Oh, how we would love to do that. And historic walks, both in the business district and other historic areas. And certainly have more educational events and outreach in the summer when the visitors are here to promote the museum.
Yeah, fantastic vision. Thank you. Can you outline the genealogy services your organization provides and those that require a fee, both for members and the public?
We provide not just for our members, but for anyone through this new family history center that has just been opened. So we're providing unlimited access to any information or artifacts that are related to someone's family as they are searching for information. We have a lot of newspaper clippings that I didn't mention, and certainly family records that have been donated. So the opportunity is there for anyone who, member of the community or member, that would like to take a look at what we have. There's no charge for any of that. We would charge for copies if you wanted to make copies of photographs or stories or artifacts that perhaps have been donated. So we're happy to make copies of those. That's all that we would charge for. And that would only be open from May to September.
Okay. And that's open to anybody, not just members?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh,
Although
wow.
we'd like to snag you as a member if you came in.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Is there any additional message or important information you'd like to share with the community or your members?
Well, I think you just need to understand that we're here for you. Anyone who is listening or our members, come see us. Don't hesitate to volunteer and make contact with whatever organization piques your interest. There's always something for everyone. Absolutely everyone. There's all kinds of interests. And so we always also promote that if you have family memories, cherish them and pass them on. And don't discard family things. Try to keep them in the family, and because that's how people are forgotten, is when the physical mementos and the physical artifacts of their lives disappear, then they disappear more from our collective memory as well.
Well said. Thank you. Michelle, how do you believe your members, volunteers, and the community perceive the value and benefits that your organization provides?
I think that we're perceived positively, and I think that people understand what the value is, and the value is that it's not all lost, that all that came before and all this that has been entrusted to us is cared for. I think that in everyday life, I think it just gets pushed down in order of importance in people's lives because it's just so busy. So I think if you ask people, they would say it's tremendously important. We know that they're appreciating what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Michelle, I want to thank you for spending time with us today. I've come to appreciate the beauty of your area, of our country, and I hope the Society attracts a lot of new members and volunteers as a result of their learning more about the work you all do on behalf of the community. And so thanks again for being here.
John, we're really grateful for the opportunity to showcase our museum and our story. We're especially thankful to you for your monumental efforts. And as I've gotten to know you through doing this, it is monumental. You are to be commended. But your efforts to document and record these stories, it's a massive undertaking. And without people like you, all these stories, this history, all these roads traveled will simply fade away and be forgotten. So on behalf of the Society, many thanks. And on my own behalf, thank you for introducing me to your podcast. I'm passing the word along and tend to be keeping up with past and future recordings. So thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. You're one of the heroes, one of our Preservation Oaks.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And with that, we'll end our time with our guest, Michelle Zeeman. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which is coming up next. Hey, welcome back, everybody. As we come to the close of this enlightening episode, we want to express our heartfelt thanks to our guest, Ms. Michelle Zeeman, from the Alden Depot and Helena Township Historical Society, located in the beautiful town of Alden, Michigan. Michelle is a truly dedicated, intelligent, knowledgeable, and capable individual. We are incredibly grateful to have her share her time and insights with us today, bringing to light the unique beauty and historical significance of the Alden Depot Museum and its surrounding area. Her passion and commitment to preserving the rich history of Alden have left a lasting impression on us, and I'm sure on you, our listeners, as well. Michelle's dedication to the Helena Township Historical Society and her love for Alden shine through in every story she shares. Having retired and been living full-time in Alden since 2007, she embodies the spirit of the community, loving everything about the area and having everything she needs right there. It's this deep connection to Alden and its history that makes her contributions so invaluable. A special shout out also goes to the Boys of Summer, also known as the Alden Volunteers. This wonderful group of individuals is dedicated to making Alden a better place where neighbors truly care for one another. Their excellent work at the Alden Depot helps maintain this historic treasure, preserving it for future generations to enjoy. Thank you to the Alden Volunteers for all you do. You are the heart and soul of this community. For those unfamiliar, Helena Township is nestled in Antrim County, a place brimming with outdoor activities all year round. With its prime location on the shores of Torch Lake, a huge, deep lake known for its stunning turquoise waters, Alden is a beloved tourist and resort destination for thousands each year. From summer to winter, the town is alive with festivals and events celebrating its vibrant community spirit and rich cultural heritage. Alden's history is as deep and storied as the lake it sits beside. The area originally thrived as a lumbering hub, with several sawmills dotting the landscape. Today, while lumbering is tightly regulated to preserve the natural beauty of the area, agriculture has taken center stage, with the region producing a bounty of fruits and housing several wineries. It's a testament to Alden's adaptability and resilience, qualities that are reflected in the work of the Helena Township Historical Society. However, like many organizations, the Helena Township Historical Society is currently facing challenges, particularly the need for more volunteers and members to carry its mission forward. Looking ahead, they plan to introduce a business membership next year to increase their outreach to local businesses, a fantastic step towards building stronger community ties and ensuring the Society's sustainability. In addition, I'd like to offer a few recommendations for the Historical Society to consider. Number one is joining the Alden Chamber of Commerce. That could open up new avenues for collaboration and support within the community. Insulating and installing heating and air conditioning in the Depot Museum and storage areas would protect valuable artifacts and allow the museum to be open year-round, creating opportunities for off-season activities and volunteer engagement. The Depot Museum is open annually from Memorial Day to Labor Day, which is also the time during the height of the tourist season. Once heating is installed, consider keeping the depot open year-round and maintaining volunteers year-round. There's always things to do, and non-tourist prime time is certainly a better time to do the maintenance of preservation operations. There's 6 months a year currently going to waste. Some things that might also help. During the tourist season, consider creating volunteer opportunities specifically for tourists who might want to give back to the community while they're visiting. This could include very short-term volunteer gigs like helping with a specific event or working in the museum for a few hours. Partner with nearby colleges and schools to provide educational classes and to offer internships or volunteer positions for students interested in history, marketing, tourism, museum studies, and communications. Utilize volunteers to lead tourist tours of the area that highlight the history of the lake, resorts, or local interests. This will give these volunteers a fun and engaging way to participate. Have tourist volunteers plan and host regular luncheons, special tours, and other social gatherings for the Society. Work with local businesses to offer discounts and incentives to volunteers. Incentives can include discounts at local restaurants, free rentals on the lake, or many other things around the area. Get volunteers who work virtually to help with your social media and creating online content about the area's history. Doing blogs or video series about local history. This can attract volunteers interested in storytelling, video production, or digital media. Do membership drives and promotions. Summer membership discounts offer special discounts on memberships during the summer tourist season, which could also include volunteer opportunities as part of the package. Invite community members to adopt a specific project or exhibit. This could be a good way to attract individuals or businesses interested in contributing to specific aspects of the Historical Society's work. Do seasonal newsletters, not just the regular newsletters, but seasonal newsletters. Send out newsletters to both local residents and tourists who have visited, highlighting upcoming events, volunteer opportunities, and stories of volunteer impact. So whether they're a member or not, gather their contact information, find out who they are, and send newsletters, encouraging them to become members and encouraging them to volunteer while they're there, especially if they're repeat tourists every year. Use social media to highlight volunteer stories and testimonials, making volunteering seem like a rewarding and enjoyable experience. Do flexible volunteer opportunities. Have one-time volunteer opportunities. Offer single-day volunteer opportunities for those who can't commit long-term. This could include event setup, maintenance, or short-term project work. And then family volunteering. Create opportunities where families can volunteer together, which could attract both locals and tourists looking for family-friendly activities. By diversifying these opportunities, the Historical Society can appeal to a broader audience, encouraging both tourists and local residents to contribute to the preservation of Alden's rich history. The Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society are treasures for any township to have. The citizens of Alden are truly fortunate to have such dedicated individuals working tirelessly to preserve their history and enrich their community. As we close, I'd like to leave the wonderful people of Alden with a beautiful piece from Mr. Mike O'Keefe, written on August 3rd, 1978, and shared with us by Michelle as one of her favorite reflections on Alden. It goes like this. And there was Alden, and I carry it with me like a photograph on the inside pocket of my mind. And each day it wears, is soiled, gets thinner and wrinkled, but still, it is Alden. Thank you all for joining us on this journey to Alden, Michigan. Please lend your support to the Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society. They very much deserve your support. They have a lot of work ahead to continue their mission and offer even more to their local community. Now, I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the organization one last time. You can find them at their website at www.aldendepot.com. You can email them at aldendepot@gmail.com. You can find them on Facebook at The Alden Depot and the Helena Township Historical Society. You can visit the Depot Museum, and I hope you do, at 10670 Coy Street, Alden, Michigan. You can mail them at Helena Township Historical Society, P.O. Box 204, Alden, Michigan 49612, and that is where you should send your checks, your donation checks. If questions occur to you and you'd like more information, please connect with the organization via the contact information provided. If you're a listener in the area the organization serves, or if you're a listener researching ancestors in the community the organization serves and you're not already a member, please consider joining and supporting them. I hope this information helps the audience understand how valuable the organization is to the community and what kinds of excellent services they have to offer to their members and the public. I think after listening to Michelle tell us all about the hard work the Society and its volunteers do in Alden and the township, you should want to support this fine institution, and that the Alden Depot Museum and Helena Township Historical Society is truly one of our preservation oaks. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, Gentle Jammers, Raphael Crooks, and Orchestralis, Waiterman, J. Hunger X, AG Soundtracks, and Scott Holmes. Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit us at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. Thank you all for tuning in. We're wrapping up Season 3 of Preservation Oaks with this final episode. And we've got something special lined up for Season 4. So mark your calendars for September 23rd as we kick off the new season. The Season 4 announcement has already hit Rumble and will be officially available everywhere else on September 16th. So get ready for an exhilarating season filled with incredible guests as we journey from the picturesque landscapes of Michigan to the vibrant state of Mississippi and beyond, exploring new states on our epic cross-country adventure. So sit back and relax for what, where, and who is coming next. And in between episodes, remember to stay curious and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world. Remember to cherish the history around you. This is Sean Radcliffe. I'll see you all next time on Preservation Oaks. And until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.